Hello again to all of you wonderful people to the 100th edition of my weekly series of this side of the information superhighway of the Weird Mind Newsroom, where of course this week, for a bit of a nasally sounding voice for me this week, we have a selection of some new releases, a couple of trailers here and there, and a hodgepodge of some selection of news stories from this week. So let's not worry on the folks' introductions, let's get into talking about all things media that we do have for this week.
I'm going back to the island. Wow, so beautiful, majestic creatures run.
So the first of the new releases is the next film of the big blockbuster for the summer, where we will see the case that we remember the creatures and species of the past being something we never knew fully about, how they were the ultimate species of this planet. The 65 million years have passed since their extinction, and we see a crazy genius bring them to life in the form of a nice park, get lost in the city, lost in an island, get the vision to return to a bigger way, and then see some become amongst society. And now in the case of it being dormant for a bit of time, they have returned, but this time they are a lot different and have evolved in some form. As we return to the franchise that really was 65 million years in the making, with the all-new entry in the Jurassic series with Jurassic World Rebirth. The new film will be set 5 years after Dominion, and the world's climate has evolved to become more inhospitable for the dinos, where they now reside in more remote tropical locales. The film will follow Zora Bennett, played by Scarlett Johansson, a covert op who was hired by a pharmaceutical company to work with Dr. Henry Loomis, played by Jonathan Bailey, and Henry Kincaid, played by Mahershala Ali, on a top-secret mission to a forbidden island that was the original research facility for the original Jurassic Park, and locate the three largest prehistoric species of the land, sea, and air, and extract some DNA samples in hopes of being able to use them to create some revolutionary drug that will save countless lives. However, this expedition is not going to be an easy one, as while the planet has evolved over the years, so has those creatures, to where a new breed of mutation has begun to take shape. Reception on this new entry in the franchise has been a bit more of a mixed reception, as while the lead performances and the visual effects have been very well received. Some of the issues seem to be stemmed from a few characters in this movie being kind of pointless in the introduction, the story being a little so-so, and the film having a little too much humor and comedy in it. But if you want to check it out for yourself, and if you have an appeal to the franchise in particular, you can catch this new film out now in cinemas. As for the first of the two streaming films for this week, it's taking a return to a follow-up of film from the early days of the pandemic, that in this strange world, no one really lives forever. But in the case of this group, that statement may have some holes in it, and may come to aid them in the journey of chaos and self-destruction, all for the keeping of their secret. As we have seen the release of the sequel of the 2020 comic book adaptation series of The Old Guard. The film will see Andy, played by Charlize Theron, and her team of immortal warriors continue their mission to protect humanity, but this time they will have to face off against a formidable new foe who threatens the very fabric of the Old Guard, while also dealing with the return of an immortal who has been thought to have been long lost to the passage of time. The reception on this follow-up, however, has been seen with a lot more pan reception compared to its original. As well as the likes of the appeal of continuing the story and the characters are sort of a positive, the film lacks an engaging narrative or much in terms of substance, but it could be something that may appeal overall as a simple popcorn flick. And if you want to check it out for yourself in that particular instance, you can catch this new film right now on Netflix. The last of the films for this week is with that it's all parts action, some big name stars in leading roles, and the case of some of the project of focusing on characters in the realm of leaders or political figures driving the world into the brink of a possible catastrophe as we know it. As we will see John Cena and Idris Elba teaming up for a new film known as Heads of State. The film will follow US President Will Derringer and British Prime Minister Sam Clarke, as we see the likes of that these two have had a not so friendly and very public rivalry. However, when Air Force One gets shot down over enemy territory, they find themselves on the run and working together to thwart a global conspiracy that threatens the entire free world. Reception on this new film seems to be more of a mixed to mostly modest reception, with much praise to the action and leads of Cena, Elba, and Priyanka Chopra Jones. The film may be a little bit of a mixed appeal in terms of its political messaging with how the world is going on right now in the mess of politics currently, but we're not going to get into that in a particular instance, but maybe worth a fun little popcorn flick in that instance. And if you want to check it out for yourself, then you can catch this new film right now on Amazon Prime Video. And the last of new releases for this week, and the only TV series in focus, is the case that we have the ideal focus in the world of many that dreams are a strange and wondrous concept, and in the base of this series adaptation, it may be something that may have hoped for, but with some current issues with its creator, the concept like the world and those inhabited in the series could lead to some possible nightmares. But after a bit of a gap since the first season, we have gotten the first half of the second and final season of The Sandman. The season will see Dream having rebuilt his realm after the capacity for over a century. He must soon have to face the fallout of his past actions, which includes unresolved family tensions and resurface old conflicts, where he'll confront gods, monsters, and mortals on a path of forgiveness fraught with twists and turns that may potentially cost cost him everything. Now, the reception on this second season so far has seen some decently positive reception with praise of the continuous story, characters, setting, and faithfulness to the adaptation, and will probably depend on the critiques of how the rest of the season will appeal overall. Though I've also seen some possible enjoyment and critiques could be from the allegations towards the creator of the comic itself, of Neil Gaiman, but if you want to check it out for yourself, you can catch volume 1 of this final season now on Netflix, with the second volume of this dropping in 3 weeks time on July 24th. And with all in that regards, that's all the new releases that we do have for this week.
Cupcakes? Oh yeah!
Now, the first of the trailers for this week is one that will be taking us to the far reaches of space on a mission that, in the case of what is needed for the job and knowledge, is perfectly reasonable, but on the basis of who they get for this mission is really way out of his depth, and league in particular. But he may be the only one who can save the day, as we have received the first trailer for the release of the next adaptation of the book by the author of The Martian, with a trailer for Project Hail Mary. The film will follow Rylan Grace, played by Ryan Gosling, a school professor who awakens on a spacecraft with no memory of himself or of his mission. When his memory slowly returns, he deduces that he is the sole survivor of a crew sent to the Tau Ceti solar system in search of a solution to a soon-to-be catastrophic event heading towards Earth. Now, in the search for answers, he must soon rely on his vast array of scientific knowledge, sheer ingenuity, and human will, but he may soon realize that he does not have to search for this alone. So, I didn't know too much on this project, but it was a case I learned from the bits of it from that this is actually the second novel from the author of The Martian, which is also a really great film starring Matt Damon from 10 years ago, as well as a case of I knew elements of this from CinemaCon in that particular instance, and it has Ryan Gosling, which of course is literally me or every bloke, and also being helmed by Lord Miller of Spider-Verse and Lego Movie fame. And all of that combined gave me a bit of an appeal and interest in the project. Plus, a fellow media reviewer, which I believe his name is Riddle Me This Movies, gave me an instance to read the book in that particular, as it's one of their favorites, and I probably will in due time. However, what they have shown is the appeal on visual and some decent concepts and projects, and probably be worth seeing if this will work itself into being a well-adapted project. As I've been told, it is a difficult novel to do so, but I'm sure we can make a judgment on it in due time when we see more footage for it, but I'd say in case when the film blasts off into cinemas for March 20th of next year. And as for our second trailer for this week, it comes to the question, how far would you go and how dangerous of a job or challenge would you go through just for the chance of making it through alive and have a better chance for your family and loved ones? Even the possibility that this so-called challenge is a blood sport that is programmed for the purpose of entertainment and your possible death. Well, for the focus of our next trailer in mind, that will be the question that gets answered, as Edgar Wright has returned after 4 years since his trip to Soho, as he's back with his first trailer for his own take on a classic action film from Stephen King with The Running Man. The film, of course, based on the original 80s novel by King and set in an alternate 2025 where the economy is in ruins and worldwide violence is high, that sees a massive popular worldwide television game show called The Running Man see contestants earn big cash prizes or try to survive for 30 days from being hunted down and killed by professional hitmen by any means necessary. And we'll see our main focus of Ben Richards become the next contestant on the run, and may soon lead him to wondering if this is an elaborate scheme and find a way to shut it down or find a better life for him and his family. So in the case, I would remember the original film from the 80s and 90s, and it could be a case of trying to compare it to the one of the past to this as well, as the book is based on. So far for what is shown, it gives me an appealing vibe of a Stephen King novel done in a unique Edgar Wright filming style and humor, and what has been shown does look pretty great and appealing to me in general. In most cases, with this one, I'm excited for it already, and it does look pretty cool. Now, it is not too long away as well. If you want to check it out for yourself, the film will be running its way right into cinemas from the 7th of November from this year. And alas, the trailers, oh wouldn't you know, it's taken us to a land of so many places you'll go, to a land so colourful and very strange at that, and all from a very tall talking cat, as we have a first trailer, so please stay where you're sat as we look at the first trailer for the all-new animated film of The Cat in the Hat. Now, in this first fully animated film version of the story, the cat, that's voiced by Bill Hader, does what he does best, spreading joy to kids in his own hilarious signature way and transport them to a magical journey of worlds that we have never seen before. In this case, he takes on his toughest job yet for the III, or the Institute for the Institution of Imagination and Inspiration LLC, to cheer up Gabby and Sebastian, a pair of siblings struggling with their move to a new town. I have known for taking things too far. If it all fails, it could be his Agent of Chaos' last chance to prove himself, or else he will lose his magical hat forever. whatsoever. Now in the case, I do like the original book from Dr. Seuss of this tall, well-dressed cat. And of course, if you know me as well, even if some of the imagery can be a little bit cursed and it's not the most well-received movie, I still have a soft spot for the cult classic movie of this live-action 2003 film with Mike Myers. From the likes of this one, I immediately take appeal of the very colorful and lively animated world they have created and how there's a distinction between the normal world and the cat's magical world and home. And I'm so mesmerized and appealing to that as well. I see some very interesting voice talent connected to it as well in that regards. Now, likes of some of the jokes in the trailers are not all the fully strongest, but that's the case, it's like to appeal to the kids and stuff like that. But I'm still appeal, and so far it does have me interested to check it out. I look forward to do so as well. And there's a bit of time wait before we do see this adventure begin, but you can head on that adventure when the film releases in the cinemas from February 27th of next year. And with all of that regards, that's all the trailers that we do have for this week too.
You got a family, Phil?
Now the first focus of our story for this week is with a kind of selection array of projects that don't overly connect with one another, but they all have a case of announcements or rumors for being on the way in due time, and I felt to place them all in one distinct news story. So let's delve into the project announcements or updates for some of these in this week, and let's see what we got in store. So first on the stories is with the focus of an announcement of a project that has some big names attached to it in the development, and starring of the project that is all being based on a recent best-selling memoir of a former child star, as well as presumably the one-woman show they named after the memoir as well. Because it was announced on Tuesday of this week that Apple TV Plus is planning to make a limited series based on the memoir of I'm Glad My Mom Died from writer and former actress Jeanette McCurdy, who was confirmed to also be the showrunner, producer, and co-writer for this planned 10-episode series, which she's co-writing with Rami writer Ari Katcher. The other big name that has also been confirmed and will be involved is with morning show star Jennifer Aniston, who's confirmed to be an executive producer on this project as well, and also confirmed to be playing McCurdy's late mother. Now, it'll be interesting to see how they will make this project in particular, as in particular I have read this memoir in full. I don't know where it is. And while it has a fair bit of humor and nice moments in there, it also has a lot of messed up material in this particular instance, and is very tragic and emotional moments. And what I can see from her life, her mom is, pardon my words, a fucking nut job who was bordering on the likes of a real crazy showbiz mom pushing a dream onto her child that they never wanted it. Which sounds a lot like a young adult former child star that's currently now making the headlines. It keeps doing the most weird, annoying shit from rebrandings, sexuality changes every 5 fucking minutes, multiple breakups with exes and all stuff. But I can guess in this thing as well the instance of her questionable relationship with some people that are not the greatest people, some messaging young fans and other questionable stuff, but I blame them all for a lot of this stuff. And in all case, in this regards, karma is basically a bitch, and they probably should have known better. But I would say check out the memoir for yourself, as it really shows a lot of the messy lives that some may have, and we should not take it all for granted. I'm all for interested in seeing how this adapts her life into a limited series. Now, at the moment, we don't know when we can expect it or who will be playing McCurdy, but I'm sure we'll hear more about this, and once I do hear anything, I'll of course update in a later episode. But speaking on the concept of family, it's time to wrap up the muscle cars and get the Coronas on ice, as we're heading back to the franchise that has over time gone crazy and over top and stunts and logic, all in the name of family. And that is of course with the Fast and the Furious franchise. Now it's been over 2 years since the first part of the supposed 2-part finale, which was unveiled to the audience in the form of Fast X, which I must again emphasize, which I've already brought in my review, they should have called Fast 10 your seatbelts. But they didn't. And there's been many discussion as to when we expecting to see the last film of the franchise and resolve that cliffhanger at the end of X. Well, it's availed in some way at a Fast and Furious-like event where we have the idea of when we can expect it, as it was announced by Vin Diesel, we're aiming for release in April 2027. That's all well and good, and we could have just ended the story there, but the added bits that we brought up with the last request in particular raise a lot of questions and a possible concern. And the release date is all good, and they all plan to bring it back to the roots, whereas of course the street racing scene from the first few movies, but the biggest question of all that he wants to do is plans to try and bring back Paul Walker's character of Brian for the project. And this is where I feel it's a little overblown, as for those unknown, Paul Walker was a big character for the franchise up until Furious 7, as while they were filming that, and while a good portion of it was filmed, he tragically died in a car accident in 2013. And a good chunk of it was made up by using his brothers as stand-ins, as well as deleted scene material and a little bit of the Uncanny Valley CGI to give his character a heartfelt send-off. But them trying to bring him back makes it kind of redundant. Now, I don't know how they'll try and do this. They'll probably likely kick out the brothers again, do the CGI, or they'll try and use AI, which will make it worse. I'm all for saying that we don't need Brian for this. Let him let them be, have normal life outside this chaos going on, and we don't need an inflated budget of over $400 million again, which is what Fast 10 happened, which saw a lot of overinflation on some stuff. Don't know where it went into. Maybe it was for Jason Momoa's long luscious hair or something, I don't fucking know. Now, I don't know how they're going to come about this, but we don't know how much of a planned presence they have for this. It's unclear, but I'm sure if anything does get brought up about this, I'll add in a later episode once everything does come along, but we'll see. But speaking of something being brought back, even when it came to a satisfying end, well, to me in particular, we've been getting reports from this week that from a couple of sources that Disney is planning in some way to try and reboot the series of Indiana Jones in some way. Now, does this go against the words of the series' main star himself, Harrison Ford, that when he goes, so does Indy, and that's planned to stay that way, which makes the most sense, as you can try all you want, but Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones through and through. And them going against the wishes is going to be a question as to why they won't listen. Now, I feel to them there is a loophole for it due to the recent success of one thing, and that is of course with the recent Indiana Jones and the Great Circle game that had Troy Baker as the role of the iconic character. But with that, he was still doing an impression of a more younger Indy from the original trilogy, and not fully trying to make it their own thing, and not like something else. Now, I know there was talks years ago of the case of continuing a reboot in this, which was initially aiming for Guardians of the Galaxy star Chris Pratt for the role, but I think they would shut down by Ford as well, so I'm not sure what they're aiming for. I do feel they could just, leave it as this and just maybe just go in the direction of just keeping it to the stories in the video game format, like a follow-up to the Great Circle, and even a full package version of the 5 films in Lego, which they did initially with the original trilogy and then Crystal Skull a year later, so a 5 game would kind of appeal overall. For now, it's all rumors and reports, but if something does come about it all, I will of course bring it up in a later episode if there is. But what are your thoughts on these stories? Are you excited for limited series take on McCurdy's memoir? Do you see bringing Walker's character back for the last Fast and Furious a good thing or a mess? And do you see reboot of Indiana Jones as a good idea or just to leave it be? Let me know your thoughts on this down below, we can talk about them there. The second of the stories for this week, we have a bit of a selection, form and focus in the realm of video games. And for like some casting, shakeups and development issues and changes from the world of gaming studios and adaptations. But let's get into talking about that now to see what we have in store for this week in that particular instance. So the first I will keep it brief, and for this one connects back to the story I gave it focus last week, as we got some more new additions for the upcoming new film adaptation of Street Fighter. That was announced with one that has been confirmed, another that has been a bit of a rumor focus right now. The first announcement was that we have presumably cast the villain role for this movie, as it was announced that the Suicide Squad and Late Night with the Devil star David Dalsmatian has been cast the iconic villain character of M. Bison. The last person to play the role was the late great Raul Julia in the 90s film. And in all sense, I think overall he's a really great choice for this role, as he can really go weird and crazy and over the top, and I think the choice is a solid one. I look forward to him really playing into the villain role well as well. As for the other role that has been discussed, there are reports of another performer that may be in the role, and it seems to be coming again from the world of wrestling, as it's been reported that WWE superstar Cody Rhodes may be in the running for the role of Guile. Now, I mentioned I think last week that there was someone reported to be playing Guile already, and that's with the Reacher star Alan Ritchson, but that may have been a possible fan casting, but could still be a rumored choice as well. I can't confirm this instance right now. I think so far on the options that for the character will work either way, as he can go for the distance and the performances and everything, and I'm sure we'll give the chance will prove their worth, but I guess it will be seen if any confirmed casting for the character will happen. Now, I feel we'll see more castings appear in due time, and I'm sure we'll see how this all comes about. Once I do hear anything more about this project, I of course will update in a later episode. Now, the next one is still staying on the world of the adaptation news, and this is with the popular, if now recently mixed adaptation of the acclaimed Last of Us series for HBO. Now, it's been about a month since the second season came to a conclusion, and those reviews will be coming in due time, but for the likes of a third season in general, that will be more story focused on Caitlin Dever's role of Abby, which is how it will be in the case in the original game's narrative as well. I would like to see a bit more of our friends, and also the introduction of the characters of Lev and Yara, two Scar kids to help Abby on her journey. And all seemed well and good, and may be swell to end it there. But that's not the focus of the story we have, as a bit of a shake-up in terms of how things running the show was announced. As announced this week, that the co-showrunner and original games director Neil Druckmann has announced that he will be stepping back from showrunning duties for the upcoming third season of the series. Now, the reason is not to do with the likes of any falling outs with the studio or Craig Mazin or any of the complaints about season 2's reception, but rather he wants to help with some focus and assistance with the upcoming projects from the studio of Naughty Dog, as they are deep in development on their newest title of Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, as well as an unknown second title, which some have speculated could be Last of Us Part 3, which I feel maybe is as well, or even some other ones like a new series or return to an old one, like maybe like a Jack and Daxter 4 or something like that. Now, it's also been confirmed the case that one of the writers for the show and the sequel of Haley Gross has also confirmed to have reportedly left their project, but the one is unclear, unless also help with the upcoming projects. Now, the case with this, there is still a sense of concern, but also I feel that, there may still appeal in this regards in that instance. Well, yes, the concern is the instance that, not having someone that knows the series well, the case that the two worked on the both games, adapting with the series works more in the way of having those that know their stuff will appeal in working into a proper adaptation, which are some points me and a friend from work we've discussed about, as we both watching at the same time, and we kind of feel like there could be concern about like falling apart in that instance, and we should be concerned. But I give a little bit of a hope in the case that with the case of Mason, we will see a proper solid third in the season and any other season stories that may come from this afterwards, as you tend to forget that this man also created one of the finest miniseries of all time with Chernobyl, as well as some uncredited works apparently for the likes of Dune Part 2 and the recent Wicked movie, as well as some writing for Mystic Quest. So I feel we'll still give the love and support to the adapting of this series, and I'm sure we'll still see some help from Neil and some from Naughty Dog on this instance in due time. Now, the only question I really have is when we will get this third season. I feel if people wait too long for it, there will be complaints, and I feel in some form will probably be at most likely next year, as there's still like 2/3 of the story left, but I'm sure we'll get some idea in due time. But if anything else changes this project, I'll of course update in a later episode in that instance. And the last of the game focused story for this week is one that's a bit more of a downer story, as we have to talk on the likes of the shakeups in the gaming industry that we've seen for a lot of this year, as another set of layoffs for a gaming field, and this time is with one of the big console publishers of Microsoft and Xbox. As announced that a further 9,000 people were let go from the company, but I'm not sure if it was 9,000 just recently or across the 4 times of the last 2 years for this particular company. And with the case has saw a selection of games being cancelled and shelved. These include a new title from the long-time studio of Rareware that was known as Everwild, that has been in development for about 6 years now. The small Irish game studio set up by John Romero, and their new shooter IP has probably been cancelled and the entire possible studio has been shut down. The IP of Forza Motorsport is apparently no longer a thing, but the Horizon series will still be in development and intact. And another MMO known as Blackbird that was recently praised by Phil Spencer about 3 months ago is no longer happening. But the biggest one that was kind of a disappointing announcement to me was with the cancellation of the new take on Perfect Dark by the Initiative and Square Enix, which was in the works or announced about 5 years ago. Now, many have speculated these games were cancelled and more of the focus to go with the concept of AI with the studio, which I feel if that's the case, I would be so pissed off that is the instance. But I feel the realm of all this is kind of raising tariffs and prices for development to kind of keep staff on that things is kind of not really is not just affecting Xbox, but in the entire gaming industry in that instance. This is where the likes of the actress that was cast for Joanna Dark for this reboot, as well as the case of many other people on social media and other projects, have started to come together, and also be getting to my focus of giving discussion this part as well. And as with a movement that has started to really take off in a movement known as Stop Killing Games, that will help bring in a new law to stop studios from cancelling games that have potential or have a lot of development done on them, as was the case of the law of making sure the games you buy, whether digital or physical, means that you own them and not be just shuttered or made out that you don't own them after spending big monies on them, and is not to listen to the lies of some of these developers or heads of studios who would like you to think that is the case. Now, if you have not signed already and you are from Europe, I'm not sure if there's ones for the US or other continents, but I'm not 100% sure in that instance, and I urge you to make sure to make a movement more stronger and spread the word when possible. And you can find the link down below in my description in case you want to, help the cause, or, share the link around in that particular instance. And hopefully, the possibility that we can be a success and have a chance in the future to really make it a success. Hopefully, the case that some of these titles that were cancelled will have a chance to be released from all of us into play in the future, but I guess we'll see. But what are your thoughts on these stories? Do you think they're solid choices for the more over-the-top film casting of the Street Fighter movie? Do you see Maze continue to make a great adaptation of The Last of Us without Druckmann? And are you sad of any of these cancellations, and do you see any of them making a comeback in the future, or will be too much of a lost cause? Let me know your thoughts down below. We can discuss about all those things down there in particular. So this last story is one that is not a one-off thing, and it seems to be a case that has become a common occurrence with this, as we are talking on some content that seems to be altered from the House of Mouse and subsidiaries of studios that have under the banner. In this case, we're heading over to the studio that I love so dearly with all my heart, as you have to talk on Pixar. Now, if so, you may not be aware or have recalled from 2 weeks ago, but Pixar currently has a new film out in cinemas known as Elio, which is sadly underperforming, and I mean really underperforming, being the lowest earning Pixar release to date even with the films that were in the pandemic still made some money. Which is a shame, as I saw it last week and I loved it, and I think it deserves more love and eyes in the project as it tackles some well-meaning concepts and themes about loneliness and identity. It also gives a case that the main lead is very coded versus someone on the spectrum, and we can appreciate their representation. But it seems that may have been a bit more than there was expected first initially on the screen. A lot of changes that occurred over the development of this project, with some being asked to change by some higher-ups at Pixar to fix some issues and become something of a shell of what was possibly an even better story. Now, according to some artists that told The Hollywood Reporter, the film initially had a lot more of a focus in the case of a theme of identity, with the character being more queer-coded, which relates to the original director's visions of connecting more of him growing up and being an openly gay filmmaker currently right now in this instance. A lot of change started happening when the film was initially first shown at a screening in Arizona about 2 years ago, and while a lot of test audience scores were positive, no one really raised their hand to say they would watch the film in cinemas, and then got the case that they had got some notes of changes to be made from the film from the higher-ups. Now at this time, the film was basically near complete, as it was initially coming out in March of 2024, but then a case that essentially saw a lot of changes. Now the film did do well in terms of critical reception as of recently, but many of the studio have emphasized the version as released is the worser version, as the likes of the identity tone has been trimmed down from a character, a lot of personality, and more themes about gender identity, and the whole space abduction story in there too. There's something that is a little too generic. Now many assume this has made the main distributor Disney being the cause of cutting out all the queer coded stuff, but some have said it may have been from the Pixar studio itself. It's hard to really say, as some of the kind of opinions are fluctuated in that regards, and a little mixed in opinion. It was not the first time that this has seen some discussion of being heavily changed or caused backlash, as we again mentioned, over a brief 2-second kiss in Lightyear, and the heavily altered aspects about Riley's opinion about having a thing for a character named Val instead of 2, or and of course just this year with the original series of Win or Lose that had to alter a story to focus on a character that was seen as transgender. And while elements of the character are still seen in the show, it's not heavily focused on. Now my thoughts on this is that with both on the opinions of the film and on all of this, is that I enjoy the film. I went to go see it and I support it as I love the studio, and while it has some issues, I still think it's an overall great film in general. For the likes of behind the scenes issues and everything, it's a shame that there's so many great stories that are told from that studio, and if there was any studio that I feel would tackle the story with more modern themes like, gender, sexuality, and other forms of kind of heavy topics and more modern norm stuff that is affected nearly every day, I think the studio would tackle it the best overall in terms of animation size, as well as diverse stories and things like that. It would do this, and I hope it's the case that we do find a way to make it work in the likes of letting people tell their more diverse stories and not have to be butchered or cut down in the higher up studios, as I feel is well due a change and a chance to have that. And I hope we'll see some more stories of this in the future. And in case of some of these will bitch and will moan about whatever they complain about, like this DEI shit, or my masculinity is being affected or whatever, then so be it. But telling some more expressive stories is more than enough, honestly. I'm all more than happy to see more expressive stories of this from Pixar, because I love this studio. I love their filmography. To me personally, I don't think they've really made a bad movie. Sure, there's some that have issues and stuff, but I still will love this movie. This studio's the day I die. But I want to know your thoughts in this instance. In this story in particular, do you feel they should have kept the original story for Elio, or if you have seen it, do you feel the version released worked more than enough for you, or would you like to be more open to more diverse projects from Pixar to be more relatable and open for many in the future? Let me think about this all down in the comments, and with all of this, that's all the news stories that we do have for this week.
You took my finger. Give that back, you little rascal.
In any case, with all of that now, that ends episode 111 of Weird My Newsroom, and I do hope you enjoy my ramblings for quite another week. Now, I'm going to try and keep this brief because I've got a bit of a kind of cold stuff, so I'm not going to ramble on too much of. Let's have some quick updates. So reviews wise, I'm currently running through a few of the short snack size box office ones. I'm just finishing up Beverly Hills Cop. I'm going to get a few other ones, like there's The Apprentice, I'm going to get to Venom, I'm going to do to Amelia Perez, I'm going to do a few other ones. If there was any films you might want me to do kind of as a quick fire short ones, I might do is that regards. There's one I did see this week that I might add as a short one, which is the live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. I watched it yesterday. It's good. It's pretty visually great. The characters look good, and the story's pretty decent. The first one's still pretty great anyway, but I just feel there's nothing really new to this adaptation. Sure, there's elements of changes and stuff, but it's not massively seen. So I feel I could probably just keep it as a simple one and compare it to maybe the original, but we'll see. And in the case then long form stuff, I'm gonna have the Last of Us reviews coming along as well as some other long form ones maybe Sonic or the other film series. You get the gist of it. They're all coming a few times, so look for that. Right then, gameplay wise, I did actually record some gameplays this week. I just decided to record the DLC for Outlast, so the Whistleblower DLC would probably be coming in the next few days. Like the case, I'm probably gonna have to to like heavily censor a fair bit of it because there is some graphic stuff in this, and especially more in the second part. First part, I might be able to get away with most bits, but there might be some bits I might have to censor in some regards, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm gonna have them in due time. I record on the Switch too as well, so we can see how that functions well, better enough stuff. There's a bit of echo in the first part, we'll get the case of it. But yeah, it'll be like Mario Wonder will come back, Cyberpunk's gonna come back, Outlaws, Star Wars Outlaws, and all other ones I'm going to get to in that particular instance. I have a few more games I've added to the list, but yeah, we can see that case of things. And long form stuff, the air video is going to come, the rewatch fun is going to come, the Horror Mode Sport Volume 2 is going to come. I seen a case Screamboat dropped on DVD here a couple days ago. I might pick it up as maybe a volume 3 one, but we'll see. And other long form stuff. Also, as well, my time-lapse video of Mario is up, and you can check it out on my channel below. I do have actually a little short I'm going to throw in there case as well. I did build the, they got the blue shell Lego set. There's like a very small one, and I decided I'll do a little short one. I'm going to trim it down to like another quick fire time lapse on YouTube Shorts and other socials, but we'll see in that regards. But look forward to them, and yeah, and if you have any ideas you want to see from a long form video from me, let me know in the comments, or anything in particular, or anything reviews, gameplays, let me know. But I think I'll leave it there for now, as I feel like we're talking long enough. But if you like my content and want to see more from me more frequently, then simply like and subscribe. As I upload new stuff every single week, I'm hoping to aim for right now for a goal of 500 subs, and by the end of this year, we're going to aim for 1,000 subs. Hopefully we get to that goal. I might figure out some ways to, like, you know, start a program thing to get like to subs kind of thing, or some methods. Maybe start streaming. I've been inspired by Irish Panda Queen and stuff, but we'll see in that regards. Let me your thoughts on everything that was discussed this week as well, from like the new releases, if you've seen them, what your thoughts on them, your opinions on the trailers, and your topics on the news stories. We can talk about anything. Just let me know in the comments below. And if you're watching, like, I appreciate everyone that checks out my stuff and stuff. If you're new here, welcome. If you're long-time fans here, thank you for checking in. And if you're people that have, like, you know, disappeared for a bit and come back and, you know, for the series or something like that, thank you for coming back. I appreciate every single one of you. But I'm gonna leave there for now. So as always, you all stay being wonderful people. Have a great day every day. Do many great things, and of course, keeping you because no one else can do what you do. And take care of yourself and your mental health, because it's very important, because it could fuck you up. But as always, you all stay being wonderful people, and of course, I shall see you all in the next episode. So take care. I'll see you later.